Adrenaline dump. You're walking to your car at night when you hear footsteps behind you, and before your brain even has time to process what's happening, your heart starts pounding, your vision sharpens, and time seems to slow. That's the adrenaline dump, and it's more sophisticated than it gets credit for. A tiny structure deep in your brain called the amygdala, your internal smoke detector, fires a threat signal. That signal tells your adrenal glands to flood your bloodstream with chemicals called catecholamines. Think of it like your body silently pulling a fire alarm. Doors seal, sprinklers activate, emergency lighting kicks on. Everything reroutes toward one goal: survival. Blood rushes to your muscles. Reaction time sharpens. And here's the part that sounds made up. Pain gets temporarily switched off. Scientists call it stress-induced analgesia. You can keep functioning through an injury long enough to escape or pull someone else out of danger. Your smoke detector just saved your life. You never even noticed it was installed. Brain freeze. You take one heroic bite of ice cream, and suddenly it feels like someone pressed an ice cube directly into your brain. For about 5 dramatic seconds, you regret every life decision that led to that bite. That sharp, stabbing sensation is actually a built-in safety brake. It strongly discourages rapid consumption of very cold substances, which, before modern medicine, could genuinely damage soft tissue in your throat or cause dangerous inhalation. Your nervous system would rather humiliate you briefly than let you inhale a frozen drink at full speed. Turns out, this glitchy body reflex is called a cold stimulus headache, better known as brain freeze. The pain happens when something very cold hits the roof of your mouth or the back of your throat. Blood vessels rapidly constrict, then dilate, triggering pain signals through the trigeminal nerve, and your brain interprets this as an alarm. The pain is disproportionate, the complaint is theatrical, but the message lands every single time. Slow down, silly. Hypnic Jerk. You're finally drifting off after a long day, blissfully almost asleep, and then your own body launches you back to full consciousness like it just remembered something urgent. That instinct once kept your ancestors alive. Humans slept in trees for millions of years, and relaxing too deeply on a branch without something catching you first was a fatal problem. As your muscles loosen at the beginning of your sleep, your brain interprets that sudden drop in tension as falling and fires a full-body grab reflex to catch the branch that isn't there anymore. Picture it like a overly anxious security guard who, every time the lights dim, assumes there's an intruder and hits the emergency button. Except the security guard is your brainstem, the lights dimming is your muscles relaxing, and the emergency button wakes you up right as you were finally comfortable. 2 million years later, you moved indoors and out of the trees. But nobody told your brainstem. Photic sneeze reflex. Stepping into bright sunlight and immediately sneezing might be the most underrated self-cleaning feature the human body has. And about 1 in 4 people have it without even realizing it's doing them a favor. It's called the photic sneeze reflex, and scientists loved it so much they gave it an acronym, ACHOO syndrome, which stands for Autosomal Compelling Helio-Ophthalmic Outburst. The advantage is straightforward. That reflexive sneeze clears nasal irritants right at the moment you transition from an indoor environment to the outdoors, which is exactly when your nose needs it most. Built-in maintenance, triggered automatically. The mechanism behind it is a wiring quirk. Your trigeminal nerve handles facial sensation, including the urge to sneeze. Your optic nerve handles vision. In some people, those two pathways sit close enough that a sudden burst of bright light bleeds across into the sneeze circuit, like a Wi-Fi signal accidentally connecting to your neighbor's speaker. It even runs in families, passed down as a dominant trait. 1 copy of the gene is all it takes. Some ancestors pass down cheekbones. Some pass down height. Yours gave you a self-cleaning nose. Still counts. Goosebumps. You step into the cold, and suddenly your skin looks like a plucked chicken. Your arm hair stands up, little bumps everywhere, doing absolutely nothing useful. Or so it seems. Those tiny bumps are actually your body pulling off 2 tricks at once. The obvious one, your ancestors had thick fur, and the same reflex puffed it up to trap heat and make them look bigger to predators. Hairless humans kept the reflex but lost the fur, so now we just get the bumps with none of the benefits. The second trick is newer science, and wilder. The same tiny muscles that cause goosebumps are physically connected to hair follicle stem cells. Stem cells are basically your body's raw material for building and repairing tissue. Researchers at Harvard found that repeated cold exposure activates those stem cells through this exact pathway, stimulating hair follicle regeneration. Your skin's cold response does cosmetic nothing in the moment, but it's been quietly doing tissue maintenance the whole time. Pruney Fingers. 10 minutes in the bath, and your fingers look like they've been on this earth for 400 years. And that is exactly the point. Your body just upgraded your hands for the environment you're in. Pruney Fingers measurably improve your grip on wet and submerged objects, bringing your handling ability close to what dry hands can do. Think of it like tire tread. Smooth tires hydroplane on wet roads, while grooved ones channel water away to keep contact. Your fingertips do the same thing, reshaping their surface geometry the moment water exposure begins. The part that surprises most people, your skin isn't swelling up passively like a soggy sponge. Your nervous system is actively narrowing blood vessels under the skin, pulling the tissue inward on purpose. Scientists confirm this when they notice that people with nerve damage in their fingers don't wrinkle at all, proving the whole thing is deliberate. Your hands have been quietly switching into aquatic mode this whole time. 10 minutes is all they need. Fever. You feel that first wave of heat, the heavy limbs, the thermometer creeping past 100, and your first instinct is to reach for ibuprofen and shut the whole thing down. That instinct, while deeply understandable, is sometimes working against the plan your immune system already set in motion. Fever isn't your body running hot by accident. It's a deliberate tactical decision. Most bacteria and viruses have a narrow temperature range where they replicate efficiently, and your immune system knows this. Cranking your internal thermostat up is a coordinated attempt to make your body inhospitable to these uninvited guests. Your brain doesn't just overheat passively. Immune molecules called pyrogens send it a direct instruction to raise the target temperature, and your body generates and conserves heat until it gets there. That's why modern doctors often let mild fevers run their course. Sometimes the most sophisticated thing your body can do actually looks like suffering from the outside. Tanning. Most people think of a tan as their skin doing something nice for them, a sun-kissed glow, a cosmetic reward for a day at the beach. But more than compliments from your colleagues, a tan is actually your skin running damage control. UV radiation from the sun physically damages the DNA inside your skin cells. When that happens, a protein called P53, essentially your cell's emergency manager, detects the damage and triggers the production of melanin, the pigment that darkens your skin. Melanin then physically positions itself like a shield over each cell's nucleus, absorbing incoming UV radiation before it can cause more damage. The darkening you see is the visible side effect of a molecular emergency response that's been quietly deploying since the first hour of sun exposure. Your skin detected a threat, identified the vulnerable areas, and built a targeted barrier. But here's the hard truth. The tan only activates after damage has already started. It's less sunscreen, more damage response. But as emergency systems go, it's remarkably well designed. Just don't forget your sunscreen next time. Pareidolia. You're scrolling through photos, and one of them stops you cold because of the unmistakable human face staring back at you from a piece of toast. That's your brain pulling something called pareidolia. That's just a fancy word saying you see faces in random shapes and lines. Your visual system is tuned to detect faces with extreme sensitivity because missing a real face in the trees attached to something that wanted to eat you was far more costly than occasionally seeing one in a cloud. False alarms are free. Missed threats are fatal. Your brain did the math a long time ago and landed firmly on overcautious. Face detection regions in your brain fire so fast in response to face-like shapes that the verdict arrives before conscious thought even gets involved. The identification is already done by the time you realize what you're looking at. A brain that sees faces in wood grain, clouds, and burnt toast is not a broken brain. It's a brain that kept its owner alive long enough for it to question its own sanity. Forgetting dreams. You wake up from what felt like the most vivid, cinematic dream of your life, and by the time you've made coffee, it's completely gone. What's more frustrating, your brain didn't just forget your dreams accidentally, it deleted them on purpose. Keeping that deletion is one of the smarter things your brain does. Dreams are where your brain processes emotions, rehearses threatening scenarios, and practices social situations. These are real mental work happening while you sleep, but if you woke up with full, vivid memories of every simulated experience, you'd have no reliable way to separate what actually happened from what your sleeping brain invented. The forgetting actively protects your grip on reality. Researchers have identified specific neurons called MCH neurons that actively switch on during REM sleep, the dream-heavy stage, and suppress memory formation. Turns out, it's a deliberate erasure system running in the background while you're in dreamland. But while you forget the content of your dreams, the skills and emotional processing stay with you. Your brain runs training simulations every night and shreds the footage before you wake up. Placebo Effect. A sugar pill with no actual drug walks into a clinical trial, and in some studies it actually reduces pain, eases symptoms, and improves how patients feel. This is one of the most quietly powerful things your brain does. because your brain has a context-driven healing mode, and sometimes the right environment is enough to switch it on. That's the actual advantage. Your nervous system has learned to associate certain cues, a white coat, a confident doctor, a pill that looks official, with incoming relief. And when those cues arrive, it starts preloading its own pain-dampening compounds before anything medical has even happened. The expectation alone triggers a real physiological response. What makes this impossible to dismiss? Open-label placebos, where patients are explicitly told the pill contains nothing active, still produce measurable improvement in some studies. Turns out, your brain has been quietly moonlighting as a pharmacy this whole time. It just needs the right prompt to open up shop. Blushing. You say something awkward in a meeting, feel the heat rising in your face, and spend the next 30 seconds desperately wishing your face would stop betraying you. Here's the thing though, that involuntary betrayal is actually working in your favor. Blushing is your body's unfakeable honesty signal. Studies show that people who visibly blush after a mistake are consistently judged as more sincere, more trustworthy, and more forgivable than people who don't. The involuntary part is exactly what makes it work. Anyone can say sorry, but nobody can fake a genuine blush on command. Your face is broadcasting an apology your words alone couldn't fully sell. When you feel embarrassment or guilt, your sympathetic nervous system, the same system behind the adrenaline response, dilates blood vessels in your cheeks, causing that visible redness. It bypasses conscious control entirely, which is precisely the point. Darwin spent years puzzling over blushing, calling it the most uniquely human of all expressions. Turns out, your body just figured out social trust before language did. Satiety lag. You finish dinner feeling fine, spend 20 minutes on the couch, and then, suddenly, you're uncomfortably full and deeply regret that second helping. Your body knew. It just didn't tell you in time. That delay is called satiety lag, and while it seems like an inconvenient glitch, there's an evolutionary advantage. When energy demands are high and time is short, like physically demanding work or unpredictable food access, the lag allows higher intake before the stop signal catches up. Your body can be intentionally fattened up, and historically that flexibility mattered enormously during periods of feast or famine. When food hits your gut, cells lining your digestive tract release satiety hormones like CCK, GLP-1, and PYY. These hormones travel through the vagus nerve to brain circuits governing when a meal ends. Think of it as your stomach filing a detailed report to headquarters, where processing the report takes around 3 hours to process. That's why there's a lag from being full to feeling full. But this also means eating slowly enough gives the report time to land before you've already overdone it. The gut-brain conversation about when to stop is always happening. You just get to decide how fast you talk over it. Emotional crying. You cry at a commercial about a dog. You cry at the end of a movie you've already seen 3 times. You cry in your car after hearing your favorite song, and every single time you feel measurably better afterward. That's not a coincidence. Emotional tears actually contain elevated levels of stress hormones, specifically chemicals your body produced during the emotional buildup. Crying appears to be a literal release valve, physically expelling stress chemistry through your tear ducts. On top of that, the act of crying shifts your nervous system from its high-alert, stressed state into a calmer recovery mode. You're not just expressing emotion, you're chemically resetting. There's a social layer too. Tears are uniquely human and nearly impossible to fake convincingly. Before language gave us words for distress, tears were the signal, triggering empathy and help from others automatically. Your body evolved a distress call that nobody can ignore and nobody can forge. Feeling better after a good cry is just your body running a surprisingly efficient pick-me-up routine. Hiccups. Hiccups are the body glitch with the worst reputation. No warning, no purpose, and no off switch. Just a humiliating sound effect your body produces at random until it decides to stop. Except hiccups have been doing something genuinely useful for much longer than they've been annoying you. In newborn babies, hiccups serve a real mechanical function. They help expel swallowed air from the stomach during feeding, allowing infants to take in significantly more milk per feed. Fetuses hiccup in the womb too, likely training their breathing muscles before birth. For the first months of human life, hiccups are a feature. There's a deeper layer though. The nerve pattern behind a hiccup is almost identical to the breathing pattern used by tadpoles when transitioning from gill breathing to lung breathing. Your brainstem is running a reflex, so ancient it predates lungs entirely. As an adult, the hiccup earns nothing, but it arrived carrying millions of years of evolutionary history, and it was indispensable twice, once in the water, once in the crib. If you like this video and want to learn more about unique hidden advantages, check out these other videos.